Hi, everybody. This is Silvio Canto in Dallas, Texas, on Sunday, January the 19th, and welcome to our commentary. Well, this is the last night of President Biden. You know, in 12 hours or so, well, more like 18, I guess, he will be history, and Donald Trump will become president. And I've got a few thoughts about the Biden presidency and why I believe is going to go down in negative terms. So let me share that with you in a minute, though. Before we do, I have a post over at the American Thinker today, Sunday morning. Just go over to American Thinker to the right hand, americanthinker.com. Go to the right hand side, and you'll see the post. And this one is about President Trump in Mexico, where I make the case that I think a lot of people in Mexico, there's a certain hysterical reaction to President Trump in Mexico. A lot of it is coming from the left. Never liked him in the first place, and the left has always been critical of Republican presidents. They tolerate Democrat presidents, but they've always been more critical of Republican presidents. And I think it's ideological, really, nothing much more than that. But they're talking about Trump invading Mexico, which is, of course, garbage. That's not going to happen. Trump is not invading Mexico. I mean, let's just get that off their heads. That's not going to happen. And I doubt very much there's going to be even military action. There may be some targeted action against some of the cartel leaders, or maybe, depending on how things develop, they may designate the cartels as terrorist organizations, therefore opening up some options for the president of the United States, some military options. But I think that's going to be the exception. For the most part, I think that what you will see President Trump do and Secretary of State Rubio do is try to persuade the Mexican government that it's in their interest to work with the United States to eliminate these cartels and these criminal, as they call it, organized crime in Mexico. I think that's what's going to happen. But nevertheless, Trump has become sort of the topic number one in Mexico, and they're overreacting to him in much the same way that the left overreacts up here. Now, on the other side of the ledger, the right wing, they tend to like what he's saying. I mean, I think they agree with Trump that there's too much organized crime. It's interesting. Down there, they call it organized crime. We call it cartels, but it's basically the same thing. And a lot of people, even politicians, will say out loud that there's too much crime and too much of a potentially cozy relationship between some of these criminal elements and the government. You hear all kinds of stuff. I think it's irresponsible to believe any of it until you see some proof. But the bottom line is that there's a lot of concern in Mexico, a lot of questions in Mexico about what's going to happen. My thinking continues to be the same. I don't think we're going to invade Mexico. I don't think we're going to take military action against Mexico, but we're going to get very tough on the border. That I do believe. And I'm also concerned, and this is something that I believe Trump will emphasize a lot more, and that is Chinese companies going into Mexico to get their products into the United States. Basically, they go in, they build them in Mexico so that they can be made in Mexico, and then they come into the United States under the North American Free Trade Agreement, or whatever they call it now. It used to be NAFTA, but now it has another name, U.S., Mexico, Canada Agreement. I think that's what they call it. But it's the same thing. It's a free trade, supposed to be a North American Free Trade Agreement. And there's a lot of concern in Canada about this, not just the United States, that China may be using Mexico. So I think that's going to be an area of contention as much as anything else. And of course, the situation on the border. Yes, Trump is going to get very tough on deportations, and he's going to get very tough on the border. So I don't think it's a prelude to an invasion of Mexico. That's not going to happen. I've told all my Mexican friends that's not going to happen. But yeah, he's going to get tough on the border. That is true. I think and in doing so, he's reflecting public opinion. I mean, there's a lot of anger about what happened related to the border here over the last 3 or 4 years. There's a sense that the border was open and that there was no follow-up or no proper action to vet some of the people who were coming in, that a lot of people came in on the basis of, okay, here's a piece of paper and you're going to go see a judge. That's not the way we've done it, and that's not the way we're going to keep on doing it. So I think there's going to be some changes, but I don't think it's going to be anything as drastic as you're hearing from some of the politicians, and especially some of the media in Mexico. I mean, they have a worse case of Trump derangement syndrome than MSNBC, and that takes a lot to have a bigger case of Trump derangement syndrome than NBC or MSNBC. You have to, you really have to suffer a great deal from the syndrome. But I don't expect big things, but I do expect a lot of things on the border, including closing the border and deporting people, many of them who've already gone through the legal process. They've already gone through the judicial process. They have already seen a judge. They have already made their case to a judge, and a court decided that you don't qualify. Well, those people are getting letters. Some of them already have those letters, and they're going to have to, they're going to have to obey those letters and leave the country sometime soon. Let's talk about the Biden presidency. Tonight is the last night that I'm not sure he's sleeping at the White House tonight. I heard something that he was in Delaware, maybe Camp David. I'm not sure. But this is the last night that he will be president. Tomorrow morning, I guess around 9:30, 10 o'clock, the president-elect and Mrs. Trump will go to the White House. They do the usual coffee and the nice ceremony, and then they take the presidential car to the Capitol, and in the Capitol, there will be the change of power. Now, this year, of course, because of the bad weather, they decided to hold it inside. Look, I think it's a good idea when the weather's like this to do it inside. I understand the beauty of doing it outside. It's historic and traditional, but when the weather's like this and it's going to get nasty, from what I understand, temperatures dropping considerably. I think, go ahead and do it inside. I mean, I don't think that anybody really cares that much. I feel sorry for some of the people who went down there to see the inauguration. I understand that. But frankly, they're better off staying at the hotel and just participating in the celebrations later, because apparently it is going to get cold in Washington, D.C. It was snowing in the Philadelphia game this afternoon. Congratulations to the Eagles, by the way. And I think it's also snowing in Baltimore, which is, of course, 50 miles from Washington, D.C. So it's going to get nasty from everything I hear. So I think it was a wiser thing to do to hold the inauguration inside. But the failure of the Biden presidency will be profound. I don't think he's going to get better, or that his presidency is going to get better. Sometimes that happens. A president is unpopular when he leaves, like Truman, and then over time he gets a lot of credit. That's not going to happen here. Because I think what will happen is over time he will become less and less relevant to anything. He's done a great deal of harm to the country, in my opinion, and he's done a great deal of harm really to the Democrat Party, which is why I don't think you're going to be seeing a lot of Joe Biden in future conventions or anything like that. I think he's going to fade away quickly. And, what a way to end a 50-year career. I have a funny feeling that this is probably not the way he wanted to end it. I don't think he wanted to end it this way. He always wanted to be president, couldn't quite do it. He finally did it, and he frankly had a very bad presidency. It all started right at the beginning when he decided to reverse some of the things that Trump had going on the border that were actually working. I think the energy policy was a mistake. Afghanistan, I think that was maybe the turning point. Afghanistan is what really, I think, destroyed his credibility without question. And then, some of the other things that he's been doing, obviously, the sense that he was not really on top of the job, that he may have been, people were protecting him in the White House, and unfortunately some in the media as well. I think when you put all of this together, most Americans are not happy with his presidency, and that's why he's leaving with very high disapproval ratings. So I don't think we're going to hear a lot about Joe Biden. I think once he's gone, he's gone. And that's just the way it is. The other big difference, of course, with Jimmy Carter, when Jimmy Carter left, he was very unpopular. But he had 44 years of a post-presidency to make that up a little bit. And he did with some of the social work that he did. Obviously, Biden is not going to do that, he's leaving the presidency as the oldest president ever. So he's not going to have all the time that Jimmy Carter had, and frankly, the energy that Jimmy Carter had to change his image over time. So he'll be gone at noon tomorrow, and that's pretty much it. I don't think we're going to be hearing a lot about Joe Biden after tomorrow. And then Trump comes in, and we'll get into a lot more of that in the next couple of days, some of the challenges that he faces and some of the opportunities that he had. He has some great opportunities, really, to do some good things for the country. Well, on this day in history, Edgar Allan Poe was born in Baltimore. Of course, he wrote many things, but he wrote that big story about the Raven, and the Ravens are playing today. So I sent a text to my niece, who's a big Ravens fan, and I said they should win a game today for Edgar Allan Poe, who was born on this day in 1809. We'll see what happens, but that's a tough game up in Buffalo, and you'll know the score probably in the next couple of hours after you listen to me or you watch this. But I think Buffalo is going to win, and that should be, I think, a rematch of the Buffalo Bills and the Kansas City Chiefs. I think that could very well be a rematch. In the National Conference, it'll be Washington and Philadelphia. No surprise with Philadelphia, but a big surprise with Washington. They're really playing very well and taking out some big heavyweights like Detroit last night. That was an incredible victory by Washington. I still say the Redskins. I'm not used to Commanders yet, so forgive me. The Washington Redskins. I keep saying that. It's a habit. And hopefully they'll go back to being the Washington Redskins. That was another. It's like the Cleveland Indians. What a silly thing to do. Change the name of a great franchise just because somebody doesn't like it. It's up to the fans. And from my understanding is the fans in Cleveland didn't have any problem with the Indians, and the fans in Washington definitely didn't have any problem with the name Redskins. But anyway, congratulations to Washington. They'll be playing Philadelphia next week, and we'll see what happens with Buffalo and Baltimore. They're going to play Kansas City next week. Good weekend of games, some pretty good games this weekend. Of course, the big one, college sports, is going to be Monday night, Ohio State, Notre Dame. That's for all the marbles, as they say, the college football championship. I think Notre Dame is going to win. I'm hoping they do. But on the other hand, you got our first vice president from Ohio State, and you've got Ohio State in the championship game. So, that's another one of those little coincidences. We'll see what happens. Well, we'll have a lot more to say about the inaugural address and everything else. A lot to get into starting tomorrow. But have a great evening from very chilly North Texas, where tomorrow morning it's going to be like 20 degrees and it's going to be windy. So it's going to be nasty to get up and go outside tomorrow morning. Thanks for watching. This is Silvio Canto in Dallas, and we will talk to you later. Bye-bye, everybody.